when I really changed perfection for excellence, I started to realize that, okay, well, if you do the best you can with what you have in the time that you have to do it with excellent effort, then you live with no regret. By giving myself grace instead of judging myself for not being able to be perfect, now I don't judge anyone around me.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Shafer of Talks with Dr. Shafer. I'm a physician, mom, coach, musician, author, publisher, and I'm passionate about helping others reclaim their stories so they can build their most beautiful future. Now, a part of reclaiming our stories can be reclaiming our space and the headspace we give up to thinking about reclaiming our space. Chaotic living or workspace can be detrimental to our health and to reaching our goals, but it can also feel like an overwhelming task to get organized. Today's guest, Lisa Woodruff, created Organize 365 to help you go from chaos to purposeful living. Lisa is the author of the upcoming Escaping Quicksand, 10 Steps to Overcome the Overwhelm of Modern Home Life. Lisa Woodruff's programs take an academic approach to reclaiming and organizing your space in a way that honors the season of life you are in and the goals you hope to achieve. Lisa has graciously agreed to share her wisdom and tips with us today, and it is just the right season for me as spring cleaning is already underway in my home. Lisa, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Shafer.
So, Lisa, off the start, what inspired you to create Organize 365?
So I was a child that was born organized, loved organizing my room, loved organizing my mom, loved organizing the kids that I babysat for in their houses, went to school, got a teaching degree, wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. By my 30s, I had these two beautiful kids that we adopted, and I was living the dream until everything fell apart. My parents got divorced. My father got sick and passed away. My kids had extra educational and medical challenges. The direct sales company I was working for went bankrupt twice. The world went into the worldwide recession. And I just was sliding further and further into the pit of despair until at 39, just about to turn 40, I was like, this cannot be my life. Like, I cannot keep going on this way. The women in our family live into their 90s or 100s. It's like, I can't do this for 60 more years. So I quit my teaching job and I came home and I was like, okay, what could I talk about for the rest of my life? And I looked back on everything I'd done in my first 4 decades of life, and it was either successful or I got the job because I was organized or I helped somebody get organized. So I was like, all right, I'll start a blog. I'll call it Organize 365. I have no idea how I'll monetize it, but for the rest of my life, I'm just going to go all in on this organizing thing.
Wow. I love that because it really resonates with an experience so many of our listeners have had, and I've had personally, where you hit this magic middle and it gets a little messy. But after that, that's when you seem to really find the strength and the clarity to lean into your gifts and try to capitalize on that in a sense and focus on that. I think we spend the first half of our lives often kind of looking so far outside of ourselves and being capitalized on rather than making the most of the gifts that we have.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like over the last 14 years of growing the company and quickly a few years into the company, I realized the mission was not to sell organizational products or even to get, organizational services as a professional organizer. The goal was for women to get organized enough so that they have more time and capacity to do what they're uniquely gifted and created to do. And that's our mission, is to give you the tools to get functionally organized, not perfectly organized, functionally organized, so that you use your time and capacity for what you're uniquely gifted and created to do.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing that you touched on there. So I was wanting to ask you, what is the very first thing we need to think about or prepare for when we are wanting to organize our space rather than our life, right? Our space, our physical space. And I know you've talked about this a lot, that often we're sold, the containers and all these expensive things that can actually, used inappropriately, clutter our spaces rather than help us with reining in the chaos. So what do we really need to do when we're starting on the journey of organizing our space?
Yeah, I think if you're in your 20s and 30s, you need the containers. Like every single answer in your 20s is to go to the store. If you're like, oh, I think I'm gonna paint a room, I don't know a paintbrush, I don't know a roller, I don't know a tray, like you have nothing. So you have to go to the store. The problem as we progress through our life is that the organization that you need in your household actually changes with different phases of life. But you think the answer is how you solved it in your 20s or how you solved it in your 30s. And that's probably the biggest lesson I personally learned organizing houses in Cincinnati for 6 years, is that in Cincinnati, Ohio, literally every single house is the same. Like they're like the same blueprint. Maybe it's a different color, or it's a ranch, or it's a two-story, but they're the same house. But the people living in it were different. It could be a new couple with no children. It could be a middle-aged couple with teenage kids. It could be a widowed woman. How they utilize that space was different. And I was like, one size doesn't fit all. You have to really think about like, how am I using this space? Who is cohabitating with me? Do I even entertain? When do I entertain? So ironically, when you're in your later years and you are, your kids have moved out or you are widowed or single on your own, you actually need a lot more entertaining stuff because you actually do entertain, and the holidays happen at your house. Like you need everything in your kitchen, but you only need it a couple of times a year. So like it's in your general kitchen space. You can actually store it somewhere else, bring it out for those holidays and put it somewhere else. So in your day-to-day living, your kitchen is much more minimalistic, but you don't really think about things like that.
Absolutely, you don't. And it's interesting because you mentioned about the different phases of life. There's also different aesthetics, right? Like I personally am somewhere between, I appreciate minimalism, but we're also very artistic. You can probably see from, the background behind me, right? We like color and things, maybe not chaos, but a little pop of interest and variety. I've got a stack of books that's maybe a bit messy looking, but I kind of like it that way. It invites me to pull a book off rather than if things look too perfect, like it's almost like it becomes a part of the wallpaper. Reflecting on how different people's aesthetics will affect their organization. What is that like for you as a professional when you go in and you want to advise someone but not alienate them because they say, oh no, this is my personality, this isn't clutter?
I am so glad you addressed this because very few people realize there is a difference here. And there definitely is a difference. In mainstream America, we are sold organization as an aesthetic. And I made that distinction years and years and years ago. Organization has zero to do with what it looks like at the end. Actually, nothing in my house is labeled. That might surprise you. I definitely am not a minimalist. I hold on to quite a few things, but I can find everything. Organization is actually an executive function. It is the ability to find things when you need things, that things have a home and they have a place to go back to. It has nothing to do with how it looks. How it looks is the last thing you do in organizing, and match your own aesthetic appeal, whether you want to be minimalist, maximalist, lots of color, no color, lots of bins and labels, no bins and labels. That is actually the after effect after you have in analog organized. Organization is actually a skill that you learn, like reading. Then what kind of books you want to read is up to you.
I hope that there was a collective sigh of relief there, right? Because I think often we feel we look around in the spaces that we've curated for ourselves and they don't necessarily match the glossy pages. And then we think, oh, we're not missing, or we are missing this external mark of, like you hinted at, perfectionism. And you talk a lot about how if that's the benchmark, it's important that we reset that because perfectionism doesn't exist, and you're not going to ever come to a place in organization where you're done, where you've achieved organization.
Yeah, totally true. So I had to give up perfectionism and I replaced it with excellence in my 40s. I gave up being a perfectionist all the way back in grade school because later I'd be diagnosed with dyslexia and then more recently ADHD. And so because of these neurological differences, I was never able to be a straight A student. That was the expectation of my mother. And I never hit it. Like I wasn't even only an AB student. I had this floating C, which really drove her nuts because I'd have it in science and then I'd get it to a B and then all of a sudden it'd be in history and I'd get that to a B and then all of a sudden it would show up somewhere else because I just couldn't use my executive function in school enough to achieve an AB status. I always had this floating C. So in 8th grade, I said to myself, well, I mean, I'm still a good person. I'm still putting forth a lot of effort, but I'm never going to be a perfectionist. And it wasn't until my mid 40s that I realized I wasn't using that as an excuse, but I did feel less than because I knew I wasn't hitting the standard. And I would tell people that I wasn't a perfectionist, but it was almost like I'm not a perfectionist because I can't do it, but you obviously can. So I'm just less than you. And what I realized was I was judging myself and others. And I do put forth excellent effort. And I realized I am a person of excellence. I always bring everything I have, all the resources I have, to bear to whatever problem needs to be solved. And I work as hard as I can, but I am not a perfect person. So it will never be perfect when I'm done. And when I really changed perfection for excellence, I started to realize that, okay, well, if you do the best you can with what you have in the time that you have to do it, with excellent effort, then you live with no regrets. And also, you can give yourself grace that you're not perfect, but you are doing your best effort. And what happened after that was surprising. By giving myself grace instead of judging myself for not being able to be perfect, now I don't judge anyone around me. Like I used to be very judgmental, but you should do it how I do, and I have the answer and you don't have the answer. I don't judge anybody. Like I could talk to any religion, any political persuasion. I don't have a dog in the fight. Like I just like people, and I give people grace, and I'm not judging because I don't think there is a perfect. I don't think there is a black and white answer to whatever we're talking about. I think there are just different shades of gray, and I'm here for it.
As a neurologist, I love that because neurologists, we have to live in the shades of gray because there's only so much we understand about the brain. And when you hold too tight to something you believe to be truth, when actually it's a data point, but it's not a firm truth, right? Then you're so focused on that you miss learning new information that may change the entire game. So I appreciate that from my perspective as a professional because, that's sink or swim. Like you have to be able to survive in that gray zone. And perfection is definitely, being a perfectionist is a hazard when you're a physician or an academic person like yourself, right? If you say, I know all the answers, you're not going to learn and expand. And I imagine from an organization standpoint, if you've been doing things a certain way in your 20s and your 30s, and you're like, this is the way I do things, and then life evolves, but you're so married to this idea that, no, I know what I'm doing, and you feel very challenged by that, then life might start to feel more challenging. Your days might start to feel less efficient, more challenging, and you may not be able to see that there are ways that you can adapt your current way that you're organizing not only your space, but your life so that you're more efficient and not burning all of this executive function related energy, because we only have so much of that. We can only make so many decisions a day, etc. And that makes me think about, so if we're still thinking about organizing a space and the spaces that we spend the most time in, that we make the most decisions in, what are some of the most challenging spaces to organize? Why? And how can we try to get over those stumbling blocks so that we can, again, kind of save some of that executive functioning power for other decisions that bring us more joy and are just more important to us at the end of the day?
Yeah, I have like 8,000 thoughts in my head. So let me just give only a couple. So I think a couple of things. Number one, if you are really struggling with like, why is this not working anymore? Think about, have the people in your household changed? Have you changed? Like, so some of the things that happen that make your household environment not work as well, or you need different change, is when your youngest child turns 5, then you can really start to get organization that's going to stick. But if your kids are under the age of 5, literally every 6 weeks to 3 months, every single thing changes. What they eat, what their sleep schedule is, the size of their clothes, like it's just insanity. So just take a nap is what I say if the kids are under 5. If your kids are a little bit older and you're like hitting middle school and they're hitting high school and you're like, this is supposed to be easier. Let me just tell you, high school is the hardest to get through because they go every different direction. It's like you have to be an octopus. You need like 12 cars for 2 kids. I don't even know how to explain it. Like it was the hardest season I was in. Then you're like, yay, they're going to get their driver's license. No, boo, because you have to do like 100 hours of driving with them, which, just pray a lot is all I have to say. Like eventually I just started looking down at the floorboard and letting my son drive, going, okay, Jesus, take the wheel. Like I got to get through all these hours. Like you're in your car. I was in my car 25 hours a week. when my kids were in high school. That's why I said to my husband, I don't go to the grocery store anymore. He's like, what do you mean you don't go to the grocery store anymore? I'm like, we don't eat the food at home because we're not there. And I haven't gone to the grocery store in 9 years because I just gave it up. I was like, he's like, how are we going to get food? I was like, you have a credit card, you have a car, and you know where the grocery store is. And he's been going for 9 years and I've never gone. So I just want to address first, before we even get to the spaces, we are so hard on ourselves. It should be perfect. Why can't I get it? You can't get it done because the kids are literally undoing it right behind you, or you're not even home to do it. So can we just start there? Now I'll go back to your original question. I think we need to reframe this because ladies, we take too much on ourselves and we should be able to do it. We should be able to do it. No, in some seasons, you literally can't do it. If the kids are under 5 or they're in middle school and high school, like, I don't know, it's not going to be great. Now, back to the house. Couple of areas that are hard to organize. I'm going to go to the storage room in this podcast because I have organized over 100 storage rooms and they look beautiful when I'm done and they're organized forever. Listen to me. When you organize a storage room the way I organize a storage room, you can move houses 20 times and your storage room will be the very first space that is organized in your new house because I call it a prepaid store. What your storage room is everything shoved in there with the door shut of things that you haven't made decisions about that are broken and empty boxes. 50% is just trash and empty boxes in every single storage room I've ever done. My storage rooms are shelving units. Plastic Home Depot shelving units. They can go in cold spaces, hot spaces, wet spaces, doesn't matter. And everything goes on a shelf. And now it looks like a store because the reason why you're saving it is because it's a prepaid store. It'll take a little bit of money. It'll take about 3 months to do it for the average storage room if you're doing it on your own. But when you're done, it is organized forever. Your paperwork, that's going to take 3 to 6 months. Once your paperwork is pared down, you get rid of the file cabinets and you go into the binders that we have, your paperwork will stay organized for a year and you'll update it every year. So some of these spaces, once you get the right systems in place, they will be able to be maintained, but we never have the time to actually get those spaces done. Now let's go back to the regular spaces that everybody was thinking about because they're like, I don't want to do my paper and storage room. Okay, great. It is spring cleaning time. So you're like, I'm going to take back this house and you're going to do Swiss cheese organizing. It's not a good thing. It's not even a good kind of cheese. I don't like Swiss cheese. So Swiss cheese is holy organizing. And I don't mean it's like religious. I mean, like it has huge holes in it that you could just climb through. So you go in the house and you're like, okay, I'm going to take back this house. I'm going to clean out the refrigerator. I'm going to do the family room. Okay, kids, get ready. We're doing the toy room. We're doing and you know what is a mess 1 to 2 weeks later? All of those spaces, because these are the spaces that everyone uses the most. And so they're going to stay messy. So here's what I encourage you to do during this spring break season. Step over the piles, ignore all the food in the refrigerator. And I want you to take yourself to your bedroom and shut the door and stay there until you're done. I want you to go in your bedroom. I want you to organize your bedroom, your bathroom, and your closet. And here's why. I don't care if it takes you 4 to 6 weeks. When you are done, your personal spaces will organize you. And do you know who's not going to mess them up? Every single person you work with or live with, unless you have a daughter and she's going to borrow your clothes. But other than that, your closet, your bathroom, your bedroom are going to stay organized. And once those are organized, you will go to bed organized and you will wake up organized and you will start living an organized life 50% of the time. Okay, fine, you're sleeping most of it. Let's not worry about that. And then the next weekend, you could take back the kitchen and the family room and the kids' rooms, and you will feel more organized because your spaces are staying organized. Those spaces only need to be maintained really 3 times a year. You will naturally want to clean out your closet Labor Day weekend, around Christmas time, the end of the year, and then sometime around now as you're getting ready to go into the next season. And it will be a natural thing to do your closet, and you can maintain your bathroom and your bedroom. In the book, Escaping Quicksand, I go point by point, step by step as to how to take back your bathroom. If you want to know, like, how do I really get all the way organized? What does it look like? What are all the steps?
I love that. And, we need help. We need structure, especially when this is maybe a skill set that we're learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no shame in saying I'm 40, I'm 50, and I'm learning organization. There's no shame in that because prior seasons may just not have lent themselves to that. So I think that's such an important part. It's also just so important that we show ourselves a data point that we can do something. And that's why I love you starting with the bedroom space that is, it's ours.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, okay, I have the data that I can do this, because I think the worst thing setting a new goal we can do neurologically or psychologically is choose a goal that's too lofty, right? Try to take off too big a bite. And then we just prove that little limiting belief that's talking to us quietly in the back of our head, that little gremlin limiting belief that's saying, I don't think you can really do this. We kind of prove it right and it reinforces, and then we just live in this chaotic environment forever and ever. So I want to talk about in your book, when you talk about going just at the last second, going to your father's house, he's become ill and you're going there to help him, and realizing how overwhelming that is to step, so you have your own baggage, you have your own life, your own skills, you've got your children, your family that you're taking care of. And then you're stepping into someone else's. How many of us at this stage of life are reckoning with that, with a parent becoming ill or passing, or a grandparent becoming ill or passing. And then all of a sudden we step into these spaces. The spaces are disorganized. The wishes are disorganized. The legacy planning isn't organized or is disorganized. And we then absorb someone else's overwhelm. And I like to think about when we train ourselves on how to manage our own environment, which is the only thing in life that we can semi-control, at least when we have to navigate someone else's waters, we have that data, right? But we also can have the grace to understand maybe why there's no will, why the paperwork isn't the way we'd like it to be when we go into mom or dad's or grandma or grandpa's house, etc. What was that experience like for you as someone who was born an organizer to all of a sudden be in these new waters that were totally different than what you were accustomed to, what you would prefer, and having to organize that for someone else?
I'm about finished with my PhD in applied psychology. And so I've been reading all the literature about home organization. And home organization, thousands of studies have been done about who's doing housework. Women do more than men. Okay, fine. Women do more than men. But in the housework studies, they are limiting the population that they study to men and women who are married with children under the age of 18, which is only 17.9% of the US population right now. And yeah, it's very evident that children create a lot of mess and a lot of work and a lot of housework, and men create work for women. I mean, okay, fine. I agree on all those points. What about the other 82% of Americans? What about the widowed woman? What about my son who lives alone? What about my daughter who's a single mom? How are they in this housework study? People are having fewer and fewer children. I mean, the growing population is married couples that don't have children. Like, there are more married couples that don't have children than do have children now, which is, a big change from the 80s when we first started studying this in this way as a gendered issue. I say this because we all have parents. We all have parents and grandparents, every last one of us. And my husband and I are the oldest, and we've done the math, and we are probably going to settle at least 5 estates, at least. We each have one sibling, so we are also the executor on those. I've been named as the executor on some other people's estates as well, so I'm probably up to 8 now. We don't think about this. We do not think about this. I mean, if you're an only child or you have a couple of siblings, like, one of you are named in your parents' will, and you find out when they fall, when they need a power of attorney or power of healthcare. So when my parents had gotten divorced, and so I never did get into my dad's computer, not that anything was on the computer. By the way, many of your parents and grandparents don't even own computers, so they're still paying everything by check, in case you think that they're digital. They're not. But I went in his file cabinet. I was like, okay, surely this is where I'm going to find the stuff. No, there were car catalogs and golf scores. There were no financial papers whatsoever. So I had to contact his CPA and I had to contact his lawyer. And then I opened the mail that he had stopped opening, which is very common as people get towards the end of their life. They stop opening the mail because, 1, it's a lot of cognitive load, and 2, they don't have enough money to pay the bills. So they just pretend that those don't exist. And then you find the credit cards, and that's when you find the subscriptions that you need to cancel and all of those things. And so, yes, we are all going to end up in this situation. What I have found is that it is very rare that you lose people immediately. Like, usually there are a couple of warning shots. Someone falls and then they recover, they get really sick and then they recover. And now with what I know, I'm like, oh, those are signals that we'll have the hard conversation, but then mom, dad, grandma, grandpa will then go back to resume all their own responsibilities. That happened with my dad. I became his power of attorney for a month and a half. And then he came back and he resumed all of his own power of attorney for a year. And then he fell again. And then that time when he came home from the hospital, it was like, but Lisa will keep paying the bills. Like Lisa will retain the power of attorney for 9 months until he ultimately passed away. When you find yourself in a power of attorney role, here's what I'm going to say to you. Just ask the uncomfortable questions, because if you don't, it's really could hurt your estate. If you don't have transfer on death for the cars in the house, if you don't have beneficiaries listed. And I just heard from another Organized 365 client, they had beneficiaries. The one spouse had passed and the 401k or whatever was supposed to transfer to the other spouse. And they even put in the paperwork for this. And then that spouse died and they were supposed to go to the contingency beneficiaries, which were the children. The insurance company or whatever had not registered that the transaction had taken place. So they are putting it through probate, and they did not give the 401k to the children. And like, we don't want to have these conversations, but here's the thing. If you put things through probate, the government will take 50%. Like, you don't want that. Your parents don't want that. And ultimately, if you're listening to this and you are the parents or grandparents, you don't want 50% of your stuff going to the state. So listen to your kids or ask your friends who have lost spouses so that you make sure you have things correctly. I can't even tell you how many times, even with our own family members, where they're like, yep, I have transfer on death. Yep, I have beneficiaries. And then I'm like, do you mind if I look? Fine, look. And they didn't. They didn't. I have a trust. I know I have a trust. No, someone else in your family had a trust and the trust paid out, but you don't have a trust. What do you mean I don't have a trust? You don't have a trust. So we hear these words and we're like, surely I've been to a lawyer 20 years ago. It must be correct. Usually it's not.
That's such great advice, because and people may think we're out in the weeds. No, this is organization, and it's really important organization, because at the end of the day, we have people we care for. We're building this beautiful life, but many of us have people that we want to leave a legacy to. We want to leave memories to. We don't want to encumber them with work, and we have things we want them to receive. We want them to receive them, right? And so how can we organize now so that happens? So that's wonderful. I'm really grateful for
Can I
you
add to
sharing that. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that just came to me so we've been talking a lot about organizing your space, and there is organizing your parents' space. There is spatial organization. What we're talking right now is paper organization, and there are not a lot of good systems for paper organization. The Paper Solution, my previous book, is really the only book there is on paper solution. And what I created in the Paper Solution is we need systems. So you mentioned that as you're in your household, you create your own system. What happens when you take on your parents or your grandparents' houses? And in my case, I already know I'm taking on 5 to 8 systems. My husband and I will take on 5 to 8 paper systems. Well, they have their own system of doing things because there is no universal system. It doesn't exist in the United States. That's why I created the Sunday Basket. That's why I created the Paper Solution. Once you have a system for how you run your household, we run ours on the Sunday Basket. Then when you do have to step in to run the household management, not the organization, the management of someone else's life, then you put them on the Sunday Basket system. Currently, we're running 3 Sunday Baskets in our household. My daughter, who is a single mom, our household, and my mother-in-law's household. And we have 3 distinct Sunday baskets. The mail goes into each one. The calendar requests go into each one. The items that need to be dropped off go into each one, so that we can maintain the management of each of those households separately. And we do it all in one kitchen.
I wanted to ask you about the Sunday basket. I find it really intriguing, because I have like a corner of my kitchen counter that's, my last stop before I leave the house. And there is a basket there, but it's mostly cluttered. And so I have just this kind of space where it's like, okay, there's the grocery list. There's the important mail. Here's the thing that kids need. Like, there's always the kids stuff in the morning before we go, right? It's like the drop space. I used to have the drop space closer to the garage, but now we have 2 mischievous dogs. So I need it to be up high. So it's like, okay, now it's on the kitchen counter space. Now it's kind of where it doesn't belong. But for this season of life, that makes it so the dogs don't eat things, which I had one of these silly puppies actually ate a jury summons. I am not kidding.
When your dog ate your homework.
I literally did, because I had it in my calendar to go. But the thing I didn't have was, like, there's a little blurb of information that tells you exactly what to do the morning that you show up. And I hadn't put that in my phone. So I remember looking for it and I was like, no. And so then so now that's why we have the corner where we have it with all the stuff where no puppies can grab things, but it's not organized. So I love this idea of having a basket. So how would I or someone who's listening take our like messy little corner in our kitchen and turn it into a basket that I assume has got to be clean at some point or empty at some point during the week so that we know that we don't miss anything and we're staying on top of our lives?
Yes. So I created the Sunday basket when my kids were 6 months and 2 years old. And then after I started Organize 365, a couple of years in, people kept mentioning the Sunday basket. The Sunday basket, is like 25 years old, and it's been manufactured for 8 years at this point. And because I was a school teacher, I created a product that would teach you how to manage your household and provide physical products. So everything Organize 365 sells, it's like you're going to school. You get school supplies, physical school supplies shipped to you. You get a course that you watch online, and then you get a classroom where we have co-working space on the weekend and people that you can talk to about doing your Sunday basket. So the Sunday basket is a physical box, and you could put mail in there. You could put returns in there. You could put the prescription that needs to be reordered in there. You could put notes to yourself in there, and it has slash pockets in there, and they're colored, and they signify different things you do as a household manager. So purple is the color for your household, and blue is the color for the people, and green is the color for the finances, and on and on. And then there's a rainbow set that you do every week. So this is your weekly household management routine. Everybody has one. Like, you have a system for paying your bills. That's part of the Sunday basket. You have a system for figuring out what you're going to make for food and what your food order is going to be. That's part of the Sunday basket. You have a system for keeping track of the jury summons and that you're going to need to put that in the car. Anything errand related, that's in there. Forms that need to be filled out, things that need to go into your binders. But then we have projects. Like, I know that you need to be working on your heating, right? So there's a project that's going on. That would be in the Sunday basket. So my dissertation right now is on perspective memory. So perspective memory is a subset kind of working memory. It's a newer term, and it is the memory of remembering things. And as household managers, we plan our week and then nothing goes to plan. So we plan our week. These are all the things I'm going to do. And then we have 89,000 perspective memory tasks. Did you remember to get the flea and tick medicine, pick up milk on the way home? I need to have jury duty. Did the kids get the glue for the project or whatever? So you'll be cooking dinner, and then child will make a request of you. That's perspective memory. And then you have your own thought. That's perspective memory. What do you do with these perspective memory thoughts when you're already doing something? So perspective memory is the new thought. Working memory is what you're actually doing. And these two things toggle back and forth all day long. That's why you feel like you are living inside of a ping pong machine, because you are. And so what I have learned to do is whenever I have any thought, I write it down, which is so funny because Dr. Shafer just wrote down while I was talking. So good job for doing what I say. Okay, so and then when you write something down, it encodes it deeper in your brain. And what's interesting is you actually remember it more, but it also leaves your working memory at the same time. So my Sunday basket is full of little index cards. And so if it can wait till Sunday, it goes in this box. Now on Sunday, yeah, it takes me 90 minutes to 3 hours to go through this box. But you guys were doing this work anyway. And I batch it and I put on my household management task hat. And then I go through things like, okay, first let's do the money. Where's the money going out? How much do we have left? Okay, now let's do what's on the calendar. Do we have money for these things or no? Okay, now let's go into our time. How much time do we have? And it's a plan. It's a weekly planning session. But it also takes all these perspective memory tasks that normal productivity people would say, if it takes less than 3 to 5 minutes, just do it right now. Don't do that anymore. You'll end up doing 95 3 to 5 minute tasks and nothing of meaningful value. We are not task rabbits. We are humans that have an amazing brain. And when you stop letting your brain give you all these little tasks all day long, you will start to do much bigger, more meaningful things like go back to school and get a PhD in your 50s. Just saying.
That's amazing. And I do want to pause and applaud you for that because that's wonderful. And I think, a big part of the show is to encourage, remind, and inspire listeners to reclaim their stories. And a lot of that does happen in midlife. I think we have this idea when we're graduating high school and starting college that it's our job to have it all figured out. But most of us realize midlife, no, something's going to happen. We're going to need to reorganize. We're going to need to start again. And so developing these skills can take some pressure off and maybe some emotional, I'm trying to think of the right word, almost like a taint of an emotional experience of having to reorganize life rather than what you've developed, which is a sense and a practice of, we always have to continually reorganize life. And it's not because we're imperfect or we didn't plan properly. it's evolution, it's expected. And I think when we take that perspective, it's so healthy and helpful so that we aren't shaming ourselves or blaming ourselves for just being human and only having so much energy and only so much computing power, and saving that energy we would lose on that emotional leak and bleed. I like kind of think of it almost like those emotions kind of bleeding into things that don't require us to kind of hurt ourselves over. We can start to let that go when we have systems in place. So I love what you're doing. It's so helpful. And something also that you talk about and you've hinted at today in discussing the emotional and the cognitive burden of housework and how that's often disproportionate. You know, when we're talking about a home that is male and female, it's often falling on the female counterpart, unless we kind of are countercultural. And like you said, you know what? Actually, you're going to the grocery store from now
Yes.
on. And that's not my thing, right? Like we kind of have to be a little countercultural to change the game and look for more equity in how the household is being managed. One thing I've read and heard you discuss, I think is so important, is also not doing the work away from our audience, as you call it, so that we don't get credit for it. It's not seen. And then I think that leads us to a place of burnout, which is code for moral injury, right? Like I've done something that I'm not getting acknowledgement for. I'm not getting credit. It's just expected of me. But no one's saying, hey, thank you so much for keeping our boat afloat, right? Like this place that we all live and survive in that's taking us from point A to B. Thank you for making it so organized and so efficient and functional. How, if you're someone like me, I'm very guilty of this. I like to do all my organizing and cleaning when my kids aren't there. I don't know why. I will say my parents didn't do a lot of organizing and cleaning in front of me. So maybe that is just a pattern. How, if you're not a person who has made a habit of including kids
Mhm.
in organizing or making sure that the people that you share your household with see the work you do so it doesn't go under as invisible labor that then leads to that feeling of moral injury, how can you intentionally form new habits that will reinforce that this is truly labor, it's benefiting our household, and making sure that you feel that you're getting credit or acknowledgement for the work you're doing?
Yeah, so I think we need to go back to you conflated a lot of different words and definitions of words in what you said because academia has never defined them. So you may be
Mm,
surprised to know that we have over 2,000 studies on housework, and there is no operational definition of housework in academia. Not only that,
mm,
but two scientists wrote papers about how there is no academic definition of housework all the way back in the beginning. I think it was 2004 and 2000, and still, though, that there's no been rebuttal to that. So my research practicum was the rebuttal to that. And I asked 1,000 Americans from ages 18 all the way to 65 of all different ethnicities, and it perfectly matches the US Census and in household compositions. And there was no difference in how men and women saw what housework was or what the definition of housework was. It was only 19 out of the 85 tasks that I asked, and they fell into three buckets: cleaning, laundry, food. That's it. But in our academic studies, we talk about lawn work and we talk about sewing, we talk about all these other things, and then we compound that time. So you have to look at what you're measuring. I'm still trying to get published. Eventually I will, because I already applied to 8 journals. I'm just going to keep going until somebody publishes it. We need an operational definition of housework. That is housework. What we're talking about in the Sunday basket is I've taken a whole bunch of different things, and that is household management.
mm,
Then there is home organization. There's like bupkis on that in academia. They're like, whatever, we don't study that. Organization of your physical spaces, which has been scientifically shown to help you set and achieve goals, especially weight loss goals, is not really studied. So we're talking about 3 different kinds of work. Now, academia is talking about how women do more housework, measured in 89 different ways, or 2,000 different ways, actually, related to marriage and children, and that women do more. Okay, but if we go by my definition of housework, which is cleaning, laundry, and food related things, pretend you're on a stage and you're going to do laundry. You may do laundry in the laundry room, but then bring the laundry basket out into the middle of the floor on Friday night where you're having pizza and movie night and fold it right in front of the family. Get up on Saturday and do the cleaning while everybody is getting ready on Saturday for wherever they're going. Now, let's say on Saturday, everyone in your house goes different directions, and you normally wait until everybody leaves the house and then you do your cleaning and your laundry. What I say to do is read a book, do whatever you want to do. And then when they come home, do the cleaning and the laundry. Because if you're doing work while they're doing play, and then they come home and you play while they're still playing, they'll be like, well, first of all, they won't know that you're doing work. And if you're doing work while they're playing when they come home, they'll be like, well, play with us. And you'll say, well, somebody has to do the work. And so you'll continue to do the work, and then you can invite them to do the work with you. But if everybody in your family is playing and you choose to work and then they come home, you see what I'm saying? Like, you need to play when they play. And if you're going to work, if all they do is play and you do work, then they should be seeing you do the work.
Yeah. And I imagine also that when you're organizing, and I may be, again, conflating terms, but organizing your division of labor with regards to housework amongst the family members, and you're trying to do it in a age appropriate way, right? We also talked about the seasons of life. You know, that's important too, because we want to be engaging kids in learning these skills, but we want to do it in an age and neurodevelopmentally appropriate fashion. I can imagine if you are a child with ADHD and you come from a family that also has, because we know these things are genetic, also has members with ADHD, and maybe they don't have those organizational skills and they're not modeled for you, they're not passed on to you. Then you go out into the world and you're creating your own household, and there may be just more stumbling blocks to creating schedule for housework and a way that your household runs. So it's so important to try to learn these skills and to model them. And that's something that I'll take hints from our listeners and from you on how to work on modeling that, because I love the precious time we have together to play. We write books together, we write music, we create art, we do all sorts of fun things, but I want them to learn the effort behind. And I also want them to see the people in their life that are organizing for them, see the work and appreciate that. And when I think of a real life example of that I think works really well, my daughter is in theater. And I think they do a good job of including the kids that are in these theater plays that are adults and children. They're not just children plays. They're in a community theater. So it's not a school theater. Involving the children in cleaning the set, setting things up, breaking things down. After they have a play, they have to literally clean and repaint the stage for the next group. And so all of these things that are, not only helpful for you in the moment, but preparing the soil for the next creative endeavor. So I love that. And I love thinking of ways that I can make sure that I'm modeling it, because so much more is caught than taught when it comes to parenting, for sure.
Yes, and academic studies will support that children who do housework do have higher executive function, like in multiple studies. So that is true, because organization, like there are 8 executive functions. Organization is one of them. Planning is one of them. Like, these are your working memory. These are your executive functions that you're working on within the household. Now, my children did not do chores. That might surprise you, but my kids had a lot of academic struggles. And so school was very difficult. And so when they came home, I didn't like pile more on. But what I did do is I taught them how to clean and organize their bedrooms. And it took a long time. Everyone can learn the skill of organizing. It just takes longer. So if you're neurodivergent, it just takes longer, but you can still learn the skill. And so I did teach my kids how to organize their space that was appropriate for them, which was their bedroom, which I call their mini apartment. So the house is mine, but the bedrooms are theirs. And by the time they were in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, they were responsible for maintaining their bedrooms. And we would redo their bedrooms every 3 years, like new fresh coat of paint, new bedspread, whatever. And they got to upgrade their apartments as they got older, got a little refrigerator or TV or whatever, because I was trying to teach them how to be independent adults in the future. And I created a script for them. It's in the book, How ADHD Affects Home Organization, to get them started. And now in their 20s, when they get overwhelmed with their actual apartments and they have a hard time getting started, occasionally they'll call me and they'll say, I'm so underwater, especially my daughter with the 2 kids. So I will come alongside and I will help, but we will do this in the same order. First thing we do is we get the laundry started. Second thing we do is we go through and we get all the trash we can. Third thing we do is we go get all dishes or plates or whatever and put those in the kitchen. And then we start on working on everything else. And that script alone, my son will call me. He's like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, go start the laundry. Call me back. He never calls me back. What happens? He goes, I got the place organized. Because he started that script of laundry, trash, dishes. Okay, now let's keep going.
What a gift to give them that. Okay. So, and we all just sometimes need a little push, right?
Yeah.
We just need that push. And that's a great thing as a parent that you can give, and also that you give to clients and readers, just that little push. I know you've got the motivation. Let me give you the framework. Let's get started. One of the things, a quote that I pulled from your book that I love is, housework does not deserve our best work. Get your time back for what you are uniquely created to do. Now, I just love this because your work is so important to you. It's not only important from it just being your bread and butter and what you do every day, like you are doing academic research and fighting to make sure that we all learn from your research. I mean, it's really impactful what you're doing, but you're also saying it's so that we can do the things we really want to do. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's never going to go away, you guys. If you think, like, as soon as you're done with laundry, you're wearing clothes currently and dirtying them as you're doing the laundry. Like, you're doing the dishes, you get the dishwasher started, and then you're like, I'm hungry. I think I'll have a snack. Like, you're on a hamster wheel, a treadmill. This is never going to end. And there's going to be work to settle your estate even after you pass. So you can spend all of your time like the good girl you are at school, getting an A+ in all of your work and turning your homework in on time. Who are you turning this into? Who's giving you the grade? Who's giving out the gold stars? No one. And also, a lot of times, I know for me at least, I was doing things that I thought my husband wanted me to do. He didn't even know I was doing them, nor did he care. I was so ticked. But then I was like, oh, this is so freeing. Like, he doesn't care. My dad made me vacuum the house every single day before he got home at 5. I was doing that for my husband. And then I held it over his head like, you should love me for this. I can't believe you don't notice this. He's like, you vacuum the house like at all? And I was like, are you kidding me? But now I only vacuum the house once a week or when we have babies that are crawling. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's good enough. Like, you need to lower your expectations. Where did these ideas come from? So I can tell you where mine did. I love the Brady Bunch growing up. Like, that was my favorite show. I wanted to have all these siblings. I wanted to have 6 kids. Like, I wanted all of it. And I loved Alice, man. She was great. She was always there for the kids. She was always in the kitchen doing something. You guys, Alice was the maid. Alice was the maid. I modeled my adult life after a maid. I was like, and man, I was doing a good job in my 20s and 30s. And in my 40s, I was like, well, how am I going to grow? Organize 365. I was like, well, I got to get out of this maid job. So I did a live event for 5 years. It's called Embrace. And my grandson was 10 months old. And I got an old-fashioned maid costume, not the sexy maid costume, the 1800s maid costume. And I had it on and I was hiding and I was coming out to the stage for my live event. And my daughter stopped by with the baby. And she opened the door and she looked at me. She goes, oh, Mom. And the baby, he was 10 months old. He looked me in the eye. He looked all the way down to my shoes. He looked all the way back up like, what the heck is this that you have on? Then he held out his arms because he wanted Lovey to hold him. But even the 10-month-old baby knew, you shouldn't, like, this is not what you should be wearing, Lovey. This is not, he couldn't even talk and he knew I shouldn't be in a maid costume. That's all I have to say about that.
I love that. And I love you sharing that realization you had that was the role, that was the job, the self-assigned job. And so many of these self-assigned jobs are because they were actually jobs we were expected to fulfill in our family systems when we didn't have choices. But now we have choices. But I think the way you phrased it is so brilliant is, yes, we have choices and we have to give up the job. And if we've been doing the job for 30, 40 years, 20 years, whatever it was, that, we have to disentangle from that. We don't just put it down and walk away from it. It's going to require some real mental effort and some intentionality to let go. And you're probably going to fall into habits and things. But if you want a new job, you have to leave your old job. You have to leave it behind and only take what serves you. I just think that's what a great way to think about that. And I wonder if our listeners are thinking about, what job do I have? What costume? If I wore the hat that I'm actually wearing in my life as my Halloween costume, what would that look like? And am I proud to wear that in front of
Yeah.
everybody? Even though that's what everyone sees me as, right? The people pleaser
Yeah.
or
And
the
I
class
loved
clown.
being a stay-at-home mom. Like, let me be clear. Like, it was my life's goal to be a stay-at-home mom. I loved that decade of my life. But now in my 50s, I really like being a CEO and I really like being a researcher. And another thing I found in academia, which I mean, this still boggles my mind. I don't even understand it, but I mean, it's been shown in research. When a couple retires, women take on an additional 7 hours a week of housework. And I'm like, what are they doing? Now, gardening is considered housework in a lot of studies. So I'm like, well, maybe they're gardening and they live in California so they could do it 24/7. But I'm like, I am absolutely not taking on 7 more hours of housework when my husband retires. Let me just make that clear and somebody write it down in ink but that is what happens. You retire and you take on more housework. So if we're saying that hobbies that are done at home are part of housework, then yes, I can see that. But if it's true actual housework, I think that we should this is a red siren. Like, let's not do this, ladies. Let's say no. Just say no.
Let's counter the
Yeah.
cultural
No.
trend and seek for equity in our households. I love that. I love that. And I can tell you, having lived in different relationships over my life, my most married, and my husband is so good at equity and relationships and in household. And if something is slipping, if some culture's sneaking in, and I'm very quick now because I wasn't before. I'm very quick now to say, like you, like, no,
Yeah, right. Not happening.
this isn't happening. But I think it's important we have this part of the conversation, not just to like stoke the egos of our awesome partners who are willing to go on this journey with us, but also to say it requires us to use our voices and to speak up. Because just like you said, when you were doing the task every day of vacuuming and thinking it was expected of you and expecting, to be a validation from it, and they didn't even know it was happening. Communication is key in changing that and finding more equity and satisfaction and avoiding that moral injury of all this invisible labor. So I love it. I love the communication. Do you, when you have these organization programs and people involved and it's a family, it's a household, do you coach so that other members of the household are a part of it, again, to make sure that this isn't just being 100% taken on by one person in the household if it is a multi-person household?
So the program to organize a house is called the Productive Home Solution. And there are a few men who are doing the program because they are the ones that are home more often and their wives are not home. But for the most part, it is women. And I look at it this way. And we have kids programs. We have launch programs as for kids that are leaving their households and establishing their own household. Organization of your space is your own personal executive function. And the role of the household manager is a role. And I view it as the CEO role of the household. And in most companies, there's only one CEO. And in my dissertation, I'm using the theory of cognitive load. So cognitive load theory actually started in education. And it was, how do we learn in education? How do we remove all the extraneous variables so that kids can actually learn whatever subjects they need to learn? And how do they learn? And in cognitive load, you have a load and you learn. But if you have a load, like managing a household, and you create a system, what happens at the end of that cognitive load is that you systematize the learning so that it is easier to do later. And what I think, and I have not studied this yet, but this is my hypothesis going forward, is that when we talk about this equity in the household and that men should be doing more and we have to divide it more evenly. Okay, first of all, you can't get anybody else to do anything. And also, if you've been married 30 years like I have, like that's not what they signed up for 30 years ago. So, they're like, no. There are a lot of us Gen Xers and baby boomers who our husbands are like, I don't know what you guys are learning, but that's not what it was like when we got married. So I'm not doing that. And also, you have this lived experience of 20, 30 years, 40 years of running your household. You have systems in your head, and your germane knowledge of how to run a household is like PhD level. And now you're saying to your spouse who has not been doing any of this or very little, you need to take half the load, and they haven't even enrolled in college yet. But your understanding of how the household runs and the invisible, like, why can't they just take it on? I don't know why they're asking me so many questions, because they're new on the job. They just showed up for work. They got their lunch pail and they're like, okay, so when is our break time? And you're like, I don't understand why you don't know where all the doctors are and why you don't know all the conditions and all the things. And like, why do I have to tell you everything? because I just showed up on the job and I had my lunch pail. I didn't even know the kids went to doctors. Like, yes, it's so true though. But this is the conversation men and women are having. You know what happens? They get divorced. So if you're going to force men to do half and they don't have the 20, 30 years of lived experience you do, and you're going to berate them, you're going to end up divorced. And I don't like what I'm seeing because that is what's happening. So my thing is, as a female business owner in Cincinnati, when I ask a male business owner, what I need to know, they go, oh my gosh, let me help you, Lisa. And by the way, you don't know this, but there are a couple more doors you need to open. I can open those now, or I can open those later. And I'm like, thank you so much. And what do we say? We say to the husband, you should know because you've walked through the front door every day what we're doing in this household. What we need to do is open our front door and go, hi, welcome to our household. The P&L of this is all of our salary, and we're running a 6-figure organization here, and here are all the people, and here are all the things we're doing, and here's where I could use your best support. Which thing appeals to you most? And let me educate you and train you on how I've done that so far, and then you can do it however you want, but I'm going to tell you how I've done it, and I will give you all my industry knowledge like you would do as a CEO of any organization. You would not, as a CEO, expect somebody to walk in the door because they know where your office is and then be like, run the company, okay? And if you don't, then I'm just going to berate you and huff off. Like, ladies, we run households. We have for eternity. The household is 68% of US GDP. We've been running the world for all time. I don't know why we didn't notice that. And any woman who has another job and or runs her own company is running 2 companies because the household is the original company and we're all running one. We are all entrepreneurs. Yes, we are overwhelmed. Yes, we need support, but also we are the leaders and we have what it takes and we are professionally development oriented and we are running these entities. So ask for the specific help you need and train your staff the way they need to be trained. Don't berate them and don't just throw your hands up and leave. Like, it's frustrating me, obviously.
Yeah. Can we couch it as a promotion?
Yeah, I'm promoting you from couch to 4K. Let's get going. Get in the game. Put your running shoes on. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And I do see, like, in younger generations, they're going into equitable marriages. And what happens is they have a baby and then they all of a sudden default to, like, there's a problem there because they default and they opt back out of the housework they were doing. That's interesting if you want to study that. But for those of us that are 40 plus, like, this is a new game. This is a new revelation that we as women are understanding. And I want to add that second layer. It's not just that it's not equitably dividing the work. It's that there's so many different kinds of work. And there's so much lived experience and knowledge that you have because you've been doing the work. So let's just be more gracious about how we do it. My husband does more than 50% at home, but it was a 10-year journey to trick him into it. I mean,
to promote him.
And I did advocate. I was like, I don't go to the grocery store anymore. And he's like, how are we going to get food? I go, I don't know. I eat McDonald's. So you can eat whatever you want. And I don't eat fast food anymore. But I was so overloaded. I couldn't do it. And so I was like, that's fine. I'm okay if we do or don't go to the grocery store. I'm just not going to be the one to do it. And that's the way to do it. Like, in parenting, don't correct how your husband diapers the kid. They'll never diaper the kid again. Like, you do it or they do it, but you don't get to tell them how to do it. And that's just how I live my life.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you sharing all of the professional anecdotes and the personal ones because they inform us so much as to, what inspires the studies from your lived experience. We all have our own lived experience and we all have opportunities to change our jobs, to promote those around us, right? There's so many opportunities, but we have to take them. We have to investigate them. We have to talk about them, communicate openly with the people who run the business with us, whether it's our household or a business outside of the household, right? We need to have open communication and a growth mindset to make sure we are being efficient and organizing our lives. I am so grateful for all of the advice and the tips you've given us. We have talked about everything from spatial organization to legacy and life planning. And that's the thing. This topic is enormous. I highly recommend Escaping Quicksand. It's a wonderful book. I have it behind me. It's coming out in June. And so listeners, you can pre-order that. Lisa, tell us how we can learn more about you, about your coursework, and also pre-order the book for listeners who want to get their hands on that.
Well, thank you. I have so enjoyed this conversation. As you can tell, I'm a little passionate. I have a lot of things to say. I've been podcasting for over 10 years over at Organize 365. So you can find that in your podcast player. The website is organize365.com. You can find out all about Escaping Quicksand there. And if you pre-order the book, I am dropping an audio chapter every week, and we are going through a community book club, and we're actually going to implement Escaping Quicksand before it even hits the shelves on June 23rd. So I'd love for you to join us.
Such important things to do as we reevaluate our lives and our mindsets, and something we're really passionate about here. I'm so grateful that you were here to talk about the book, your previous book, as well as all of the courses people can enjoy, whatever it is that they're wanting to get organized, from their mindset to their homes. There's so many things that they can learn from. Listen to the podcast, check out the book when it comes out, pre-order it now. And also let us know what you've learned from this discussion. What thoughts have come up from you? Again, across the gamut, we've got lots of things we discussed, and we would love to engage with you, answer questions, and be inspired even for future research, right? Because Lisa is doing all sorts of very interesting, groundbreaking research. Thank you so much to our storytellers for being here and your commitment to reclaiming your story to build your most beautiful future. You're worth it. I hope you take steps today that move you in the direction of your dreams. And Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise. Make sure, listeners, that you subscribe to the show so you don't miss upcoming inspiring episodes, and share with us your takeaways from today's discussion. Until next time, stay safe and take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Everybody's lonely, but you can hold on to me, and I will try to make it right. Everyone needs something. Let me be that one.